Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Professor Thorgy in the Morning. I'm just kidding, that is not a new show that we're about to start doing here. I already have way too many shows to begin with. However, it is insanely early in the morning for me, so forgive me if I'm a little bit loopy, but I stayed up all night watching the first 7 episodes of Daredevil Season 2, and this is my post-Geek Out reaction to it. Now, if you guys have never watched one of my post-Geek Out reactions, they're not reviews. They're not things where I sit down, I think about all the things I want to say, and I write it all out. I come up with skits and jokes like I do with all my regular reviews. This is just an open and honest discussion about how I felt about the thing that I just watched. It's my immediate reaction to the thing that I just watched. And yeah, that means that full spoilers are on. So if you guys have not watched the first 7 episodes of Daredevil Season 2, you might want to tune out right now. And for anybody asking why are you doing the first 7 episodes, it's because 13 hour-long episodes would be too much to cover in one thing. So this is kind of the halfway point. And I will do another one when I fully wrap up the remaining episodes. So here we go. Okay, first thing that I want to say is that I really liked Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in Daredevil in the previous season, but he still felt a little bit stiff to me. Not a lot, like he really was good in that role, but he just felt a little bit stiff. I feel like that problem is gone this season. I feel like he has loosened up and he just feels way more comfortable in that character. Especially as Daredevil, because that was one of my biggest concerns going into this season, is that all the previous season was leading up to that moment of him becoming Daredevil, and now that we have a brand new showrunner and he's no longer leading up to that moment, he actually is Daredevil throughout this whole season, I was kind of worried that he might not fit it, or that it might be completely different and it might not work. I was totally wrong to think that, because he just nails it as this character. He's fantastic as Daredevil. In fact, I even like him more as Daredevil this season than I did as the masked vigilante last season. I think that he is excellent and he absolutely understands that character. Like, I love the fact that he's not just being completely gritty and dark at all times. I love that there are moments in which Daredevil is smiling. I love that there are moments in which he's a little bit jokey, because yeah, Daredevil should be like that. And also, even if you've never read a Daredevil comic, so you don't know who this character is, you still can't have a character just be that 100% gritty at all times over the course of 13 hours. You need him to occasionally smile just to crack it up a bit, just to break up all that tension, and I think it works incredibly well. I think that he is nailing that character. In fact, there was that moment in which the mask shattered and he had to take it back to, I don't know his actual name in the show, but in the comics he's Gladiator. He had to take him to Gladiator. By the way, we see him with his body armor and it's the Gladiator suit, and I'm like, are you going to actually go full-on supervillain later on in this season? Or maybe even next season? I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel about that, but it was a nice little Easter egg that they put in there. But there was that moment in which the mask shattered and he took it to Gladiator to get fixed, and he says, yeah, it's going to take a while. And then he started walking around in just the hoodie, and I was like, are you guys going to go through an entire season again of him not in costume, all leading up to in the final episode he puts the costume back on? Thank God they didn't do that. In fact, they gave him a new costume, and I like the costume from the previous season, and this one is 99% the same, but the little tweaks that they gave it, I actually do really like. Now, moving away from Charlie Cox, the rest of the supporting cast, again, I think is just nailing it this season. I really liked Foggy last season, but this season, that dude has stepped up. I mean, one of the things that always kind of bugs me about the comics is they always treat Foggy like he's nothing but a joke. And like, yeah, Foggy is kind of a jokey character, but he's also a really skilled attorney. When he has to step up, he steps up. And I've gotten up to the point in which the trial of the Punisher has started, the trial that Matt wanted so much, and Matt has just completely avoided it because he has to go out and do Daredevil stuff, and Foggy now has to be in charge of this completely unwinnable case of the century. And that moment in which he is stumbling and he doesn't know what to say, and they just go, you know what, screw it. And he just then improvs that great opening speech, oh my gosh, that was excellent. And it kind of proved to me, yeah, this guy is talented. There's a reason why he and Matt Murdock were best friends in college. They are both really good at what they do. And I really loved Karen Page last season on this show. I loved watching her overcome that crisis that she was facing at the beginning of the season, and watching her kind of grow stronger as a character because of it, and watching her take what had happened to her and channeling that into her investigation to find out the secrets behind the Kingpin. And she was such a great investigator in the previous season. And this season, she's doing it all over again, but she seems even stronger. She seems even more confident with it. She seems even more assertive. And in fact, there's that amazing moment in which she is having to go and talk to Frank Castle while he's in prison about, their case, and maybe getting a character witness for him, and he doesn't want to play ball at all. And she just puts this serial killer in his place, just not backing down at all, not afraid of him at all, and she actually gets him to kind of like crumble a little bit, to get him to kind of go, okay, fine, here, I'll play ball with you. That was an amazing moment, and it shows how strong this character has become. In fact, as I was watching her character investigate this, all I could think was, man, you should be an attorney too. And then a couple episodes later, Matt actually says, yeah, you should really be an attorney. You should go to law school and join us in our firm. But let's get into the biggest, most dangerous new character of the season, the DA. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. Listen, I know that everybody wants to talk about the Punisher this season, everybody wants to talk about the Hand, everybody wants to talk about Elektra, but to me, the most cutthroat character so far this season has been the DA, because, listen, the Punisher is going after mob bosses. The DA is just going after these two small-time attorneys who are struggling and can barely pay their rent, and she's like, no, I want to crush them. Just smear them into the pavement. And the way that she is just so manipulative, and the way that she is just trying to alter the facts and just trying to hide everything. And I don't know how she's connected to the Punisher yet, but there's clearly some kind of a connection that she has to him, and I'm just on the edge of my seat trying to see what is going to happen with that. And the fact that she's like doing it all so that she can make a bid for mayor, it's like, man, I know there aren't ninjas in the real world, but there are politicians out there who are that cutthroat. So watching her do that, it just makes her character all that much more real, which makes her even more threatening. And the actress who is portraying her is just nailing it. She is just so that perfect level of cutthroat. I mean, her opening statement for the Punisher case, like every single time that she just turned and looked over in their direction, it was like she was just shooting daggers over at them. But let's go ahead and get into the characters that everybody wants to talk about. The Punisher. I think they are nailing that character. I had total faith in them when they announced that Shane from The Walking Dead was going to be playing him, because Shane from The Walking Dead was basically the Punisher in a post-apocalyptic world. But he is not only making this character threatening, he's not only making him this criminal hunting badass, but I was not expecting for the Punisher to have so much heart. I mean, I love that they are really showing how he has thought everything out in this war on crime. I mean, like the way that he booby-trapped the cash in his van. I called that, and it still shocked me. Like, I knew it was like, alright, he's gonna have some kind of an explosion or something rigged to his van, and indeed he did, and I was still like, oh my god, who could have seen that coming? Or the way when he goes into that store, and he just knows everything to ask for that he needs in order to continue this war on crime. I was like, wow, he's just doing it with this level of professionalism that just shows how well this character has thought out this war of his. But as I said, I was not expecting the heart, because you need to give the Punisher heart, but nobody ever really thinks of that. I mean, everybody knows his origin, that, oh yeah, he was a family man, he was a soldier, but then all of a sudden his family died and he went kind of crazy, and everybody just focuses on the crazy part. Nobody ever focuses on how much he loved his family. And there was that moment when he was telling the story about coming home from the war and going to his daughter's school. And I'm not gonna lie, The Punisher made me cry. Not a lot, I wasn't bawling, but I had that little tear coming down because you could just feel how much this character loved his family, how much his family meant to him. And that wasn't even the only moment. When he was talking to Karen in the hospital and he was talking about how his son would always hide cookies or things like that, it just shows you how much he loved his family and how they just meant the world to him. And when you hear him talk about them like that, and you think about how they were just so brutally taken away from him, it's like, I'm not going to come in here and endorse vigilantism, but I can totally see why this character is doing this. I do not look at this character anymore like, oh yeah, he's crazy, he's insane. I look at this guy like, I see where you're coming from, which is not something I ever expected to say about the Punisher, but that's something that you need to be able to say about the Punisher to be able to fully buy him. You need to be able to look at that guy and go, I understand how much you've lost. I understand where you're coming from. And they did that in this TV show better than I have ever read in any Punisher comic. And the way that he cared about that dog, I thought that they threw that in there just at first kind of like, okay, we need to give him some kind of a heart so the audience just doesn't think he's a monster. But after you hear the way that he cared about his family, and you can just feel it in his voice, how much they meant to him, it made me look at how much he cared for that dog. Now it's like, okay, this is just something that they threw in there so that the audience would warm up to this guy. You can really tell that he was caring for that dog almost like it was an extension of his family. It made me almost think, did he also have a dog when he had a family? Did one of his kids always want a dog, but he couldn't get them one? Yeah, it just added a whole new layer to that character. And of course I have to talk about Elektra coming in. She had an amazing intro because I was really starting to warm up to Matt and Karen, and they had that great little moment where they had their first kiss, and I absolutely loved the little raindrop coming down and landing on her arm. And then Matt just goes home and he's perfectly safe and he's just sitting there happy and content. And then he just grabs that knife out of nowhere. And then Elektra, she's not hiding. Like, I expected someone to be like hiding in the shadows, maybe just didn't know them. Elektra is just sitting there in the open, and that was such an amazing intro because it showed that Matt, yeah, these are people he can't sense. He's got heightened senses. He can hear heartbeats, and somehow he walked into his apartment just totally fine, just had himself a beer, and she was just sitting there completely cloaked from him. It just showed how much of a badass ninja she is. Like, that's an amazing intro because right off the bat, we learn what her abilities are just in that intro, and we learn what her personality is just in the way that she was like, hey Matt, how's it going? Yeah, oh, I'm totally ninjaing in your apartment right now. Just, it showed us so much about her before she even said a full sentence of dialogue. And I like Elektra in the comics. In fact, I absolutely loved the last series that she had, which was drawn by Mike Del Mundo. It was one of the most gorgeous books out there. And the writer really got to the heart of that character. It got to what was behind all of her little murderous ninja sprees and what was going through her mind. I think they captured her perfectly. And the character that I have seen so far this season is totally different from the Elektra that I have seen in the comics. However, I love this character. I think that the character they have created for Elektra this season is fantastic. I think that's the character that we need this season. First off, her personality and the way she's so carefree is the perfect foil to Matt's Daredevil. And when it showed us how they used to interact back in college when they were dating, it made me look at that and go, yeah, I totally buy the chemistry between you guys. I can totally see why Daredevil, why Matt Murdock would have fallen for Elektra. It showed that in many ways Elektra was this character that Matt needed in his life because she was a character who could keep up with him. She could keep up with all of his training. She could keep up with those heightened senses of his. She could find ways to constantly keep him on his toes and constantly surprise him. But at the same time, she wasn't serious like him. She actually enjoyed living life. She actually went out there and enjoyed herself. And that was something that Matt never got the chance to do. As a child, he was blinded at an early age, so he had to learn how to compensate with that and with those heightened senses of his. Then his father died. And then he had to go into training nonstop. Then he had to start studying nonstop to be an attorney. She was really the first breath of life that came into his, and I absolutely love seeing those two together. You could instantly buy why Matt had such affection for her and why he cared so much about her. And I love that now she's basically kind of the crazy ex-girlfriend who's come back into town and is like, no, I'm trying to get my stuff together. It's like, okay, that's fun. Let's go out and have drinks. And it's like, yeah, you really know that he shouldn't. But at the same time, when you see what she used to mean to him, you can understand. It's like, all right, yeah, you can say you're going out there just to stop the Yakuza, but you know there's something underneath all that. He's might be doing this for professional reasons, but there's something in the back of his mind that is actually really enjoying going out there and being with Elektra again. Although I'm starting to get to that point in which he's like, no, you've ruined my life again by coming back into it. You've ruined these cases of mine. My friends now hate me, which was exactly what was going to happen. The moment that I saw Elektra just pop up on his couch there, it was like, yeah, I know what's going to happen. This will not end well. This will wreck his life. And it's now getting to that point in which it's beginning to. But I just got to the point in which they're starting to research the Yakuza and what they're doing. And there was that amazing line in which that guy said, you know I would never go against the Yakuza. And he just went, who said I was Yakuza? And I was like, oh my god, the hand. Oh, I knew the hand was going to be in here, but I thought they were going to chicken out because they were going to be like, oh yeah, you know, the hand, that's some weird mythical ninja tribe. We want to go more realistic on this, so we're going to go with Yakuza. So the moment that he said, who said I was Yakuza, I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing it. They're actually doing the hand, and I just got up to that point in which they're going through that building and they find that gigantic hole. And the last thing I saw is Matt just takes the flashlight and throws it in, and it has the best ending and best cliffhanger to any episode that I have seen so far this season, in which he just throws the flashlight down and she just goes, did it hit the bomb yet? No. Okay, well tell me when it does. There's just that beat of silence and it's like, oh my god, this is getting so cryptic and so weird and creepy, and the hand is tied into all kinds of weird, crazy, mystical stuff, and it's tied to demons, and this looks like they just dug a tunnel to hell. And oh my gosh, it's so damn good. I don't even have words right now, but I was all tingly from it. Like I said, I was so tired last night, and yet I kept going, I'm just gonna watch one more episode, one more episode, one more episode. And after that cliffhanger, it took everything in me to turn it off and go to bed. So yeah, so far I'm absolutely loving this season. I think that each of the characters, they feel more comfortable, and I think that they each seem more confident. And I've said this many times before, but never underestimate the importance of having your characters be competent and be good at what they do. And it seems like this season, every single character is just on point. And I really love watching the interaction between Matt and the cops. And in fact, it kind of made me think of the way that Batman interacts with the cops, except that the cops are far less trusting of Daredevil. And the moment that I had that thought, it made me think back to the moment that they announced that this was actually going to come out the week before Batman vs. Superman. And I said that this had to have been some kind of a plan by Marvel, because when it comes to Batman vs. Superman and the whole DC cinematic universe, DC has been bragging about how their world is going to be more realistic, it's going to be more gritty, and this is going to be our first look at Batman in this new realistic and gritty world. And when I was watching Daredevil and the way he interacted with the cops, and I thought, oh, this is kind of like Batman, I realized this is exactly what Marvel wanted. They wanted to put out there their version of Batman the week before we saw their version of Batman. So when we actually went and saw that Batman, we'd be sitting there, and even if it was good, we couldn't help but think of, yeah, is this better than Daredevil? Man, I really like Daredevil. It would be in our minds. This is insane to me what they did, because basically they turned Batman vs. Superman into sort of a backwards promotion for their own show, because there's no way that you're not going to think about Daredevil at any point when you're watching Batman and Batman vs. Superman. This is insanely brilliant and kind of evil on Disney's part. So yeah, I'm now officially halfway through. I'm absolutely loving it. I might be enjoying it more than season 1. I don't know if I'm enjoying it more than Jessica Jones, because Jessica Jones was definitely my favorite thing from these Netflix shows so far, but if this sticks to the landing, it might overtake that. My only real complaints are that I think that the combat seems not as strong as it did in season 1, although there are moments, like his whole fight through that stairwell, which was supposed to all be one shot, but you know, there were cheats here and there. But that whole fight throughout the entire building against the bikers, that was fantastic. I absolutely love that. But there are some moments in which it's not as strong as it was. And also, I don't know why they refuse to show us Daredevil's vision. That's always been something that I felt was important to Daredevil, was actually seeing the way that his sonar allows him to see the world, because it actually does give you more of an understanding of this character and the way that he fights and the way that he solves all these crimes. And we only saw it once in the previous season, and so far we haven't seen it at all this season. And yeah, that's kind of a problem that I have. I actually do wish that they would show that more, because like I said, when you actually see the way that he views the world and the way that he goes into fighting crime like this, it gives you far more of an understanding of just the way that he operates. In fact, I just mentioned the fight in that building in which he had the chain in one hand and the gun duct taped to the other, which I know it should have made me laugh when he was punching people with a gun duct taped to his hand. I don't know why, but I just found that mildly humorous. But he was using the chain to take out all the lights, and I was like, oh, here it comes. He's gonna take out all the lights. They're gonna be completely left in the dark, and then we're gonna see this fight from his sonar point of view. They didn't do that. So yeah, I'm really hoping that we get to see it at least a little later on in the season. So okay, there you go guys. Those are my thoughts on the first half of Daredevil Season 2. Let me know in the comments down below how you felt about these first 7 episodes. Full spoilers are allowed. However, if you want to talk about anything that came after episode 7, wait until my second post-Geek Out reaction, in which I talk about the rest of the season. And speaking of the post-Geek Out reactions, I've been meaning to ask you guys this, so let me also know in the comments down below, how do you feel about these post-Geek Out reactions? This is still a fairly new thing that we are doing on this channel, and as I've said, I like them because they allow me to cover a much wider range of geeky things, and also it allows me to make my actual reviews a little bit more professional, because when I don't have to do a review for absolutely everything out there, I can actually focus more attention on the reviews that I actually do make. But I don't want to keep making these if you guys are getting really annoyed by them. Like if every single time one of these pops up in your subscription, you just look at it and you're like, oh god, one of these things again. So let me know in the comments down below whether or not you want to keep seeing these. Because even though, like I said, it does have those positives, if you guys have a bunch of negatives with it, I don't want to keep shoving it in your face. But thank you guys very much for watching another one of these. Stay tuned for the next one and come back next time. I'm too tired to come up with an outro. Bye everyone. I'm going back to bed.